I'm Andrew Perry, and this is the real Desert Dogs.
So we're in this cave near the Hoover-Star Mill, maybe about 75 feet away from it. I decided to look at some stuff around here because there's signs of a settlement or something like that where people would hang out, and we were checking out this cave. A couple of moments ago we were speaking really loud, but now we're speaking really soft because we just stumbled upon the current resident of this cave system.
Previously on the Desert Dogs.
I'm not going to put nothing on you, but I'm not a four-wheel driver myself. And I know your fear, but your vehicle could handle it.
Alright, here, just got to Chloride City. There's Richard checking out a mine shaft. Looking down at it. Wait, what are you doing?
Y'all best to get out my house.
When you come to Death Valley and you think about the animal life that lives out here, you probably don't think about fish.
This is the Devil's Golf Course. Death Valley is much larger than the roads can ever show you. One visit cannot yield to you the breadth of history and life that dwells here, or has dwelled here. But if you venture away from the tourist traps, and if you can live without the creature comforts of a plush resort, you can at least get a glimpse. Not merely a glimpse of wildlife and history, but of something deeper. Something close to reality.
When I was working in REI.
You used to give Death Valley classes while at REI.
Yes.
Could you talk about some things like that you would, like some points of interest, like maybe 2 or 3 that you would talk about?
Often showed people, I had 3 different styles in the lecture. One for those who just want to do the tourism with their cars and see the museums and eat at restaurants. So I tell them about Burton Wagon's Point plaque there at Stovepipe Wells and see Furnace Creek. For those who want to backpack and stuff, I turn them on to Panamint City, hike up to Panamint City, hike up to Saddle Rock Mine, go visit Skidoo. Maybe if you got a 4-wheel drive, do some 4-wheel drive. There's over 200 and some miles of 4-wheel drive roads through the park. So those people see Death Valley.
Prior to last episode's driving tour of Death Valley, Richard Elliott gave me and Marty a very unique and specialized tour. This episode covers several places that very few people get to see, and even encounters with wildlife that fewer still have had the privilege to witness.
Up into the 1970s.
This is Immigrant Canyon?
This is the Immigrant Canyon. This is the mouth of the canyon. We're now going into Immigrant Canyon.
Sweet.
From what I understand, in some of the historical books, said that the Mormon immigrants came through this way on their way to the gold fields. So that's why they call it Immigrant.
Yeah, right now I'm rocking toward this. It's a mill right outside of the road. It's kind of easy to miss, and I think he said it was called the Hoover Mill. And he's going to talk a little bit more about it right now.
We're at what is called the Hoover-Star Mill. Walter M. Hoover and a Mr. Starr operated a cyanide mill here processing gold in the mid-1930s. What we're looking at is the remains of where there were 4 cement tanks built, and there were in the old days ahead of it were metal tanks. You can still see some remnants. And then the bottom of the tank below us is still wood that lined the bottom of that cyanide pit. So they'd have to go from vat to vat in processing the gold ore. And they were partners until 1935. Hoover left, but Mr. Starr stayed on until the end of 1935, and then he left and this place was abandoned. And in the 1970s, the National Park Service cleaned up the site and tore down the tanks, but we still have the cement bases. Caves over there, there's a rock. Even the Park Service doesn't know why that's there or who lived there or what they did here or anything. They don't have any answers to that, but it's obviously something that man lived there.
Again we hit the road, and then he veers onto a dirt road and treats us to something special. A graveyard of cars.
Be gone. In the old days, they were really ingenious in reusing parts. They could use a motor to use it to power something, or cannibalize it for other things. So in the old days, a lot of the miners knew a lot about welding and how to reuse things and reinvent them in a sense.
Alright, here we are at the 95th annual Death Valley Car Show. We got a wonderful selection of cars here, and we've had the exact same cars for 95 years. So what we're going to do right now is take a look at these finely tuned, valued classics that have been tweaked out by the desert over the past 95 years. We've got a lot of custom vehicles here that you'll never see anywhere else in the world. So come join me. Let's start this. Okay, so what we got right here is a 1937 Ford, converted it into a 2015 Hoopty. So you can see we got the custom paint job right here, two-tone, orange rust, green rust. You won't find that anywhere else on the planet, baby. Only here in Death Valley. We know how to do our cars right here. Notice, custom, no engine. Don't need it. No engine. Come over here, let me show you the inside. Look, in a desert, you gotta be fast. And the way you be fast is how you shed weight. Now if you look in here, no seats. You don't need them. Seats take up too much weight. All you need is the springs. And if you don't want the springs, you can just take it out. Look how loose this is. That's all you need. Custom vehicle you won't find anywhere else in the world.
As we hit the road, we found what appeared to be man-made caves. So in true desert dog fashion, we stopped the car and explored.
So you think it's the hang stuff? Oh, it's Platonia?
They had a fire. It's the charcoal. Look at that plant.
I don't know that.
So that's wood in there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe they drilled it and then just pounded it in, right? I mean,
See, this is the fun I have as a historian doing research, thinking, if I was an Indian, where would I put a petroglyph? If I was a miner, why would I put a piece of wood in here? Like you said, this probably could have hung his lantern here, his clothes,
yeah.
a stove over a fire. Well, obviously had a fire there, somebody at one time.
It's like a little cave.
Roof, open roof. See, they lived and worked here because there are a lot of mines in the top back there. Open pits and deep shaft. You can tell it's been hidden here. Oh yeah. A lot of droppings. The little I know about mining, and particularly looking for gold and silver, they're looking for like a place where the quartz is deposited in the rock. So a lot of times you can tell when a mine was started, they're following a vein and see if it will lead to more. In this case, I don't know what the ore was they're looking for here, because I've seen some of the ore up on the top side, and it's kind of a crystal-like material, and it was all over. And there's some of that in here, like right here.
Copper, maybe.
Is it copper? Yeah, and Death Valley is famous for copper.
Yeah.
What is it? A bat?
Yeah, right there. Just decided to look at some stuff around here because there's signs of a settlement or something like that where people would hang out, and we were checking out this cave. A couple of moments ago we were speaking really loud, but now we're speaking really soft because we just stumbled upon the current resident of this cave system, which is a little bat. Now, I don't know too much about bats. I have no idea at the moment what kind of bat it is, but it's just right up in that little crevice right there. And it's sleeping right now because that's what bats do during the day, is they sleep. But it's really small, maybe only about 2.5, 3 inches long from head to tail. And yeah, it's definitely alive. It's breathing. That's pretty cool. I'm face to face with it and everything. Yeah. Don't want to wake it up. Don't want to disturb it. You know. Yeah. I can tell it's an insectivorous bat, just because of its large ears and the crenulations in its nose. which actually uses to pick up sound and everything when it's trying to echolocate throughout the air to find insects. There could be it could be a good chance tonight or any night when you're out in the desert and you see bats flying around that this might be the species that you're actually looking at. And now we come to one of our classic historical vehicles, our 1936 GM Liquor and Cosmetic SUV. Now, real spit, real truth, this is probably one of the first SUVs ever built, son. And it's classic. Now, unlike all the other cars out here at the Death Valley Car Show, let's take a look at this front seat. Full on metal front seat. Always got to keep it different here in Death Valley. Car show, we got style, baby. Come around here in the back. Now this is real pimp. This is real pimp right here. This is custom wood grain bottom interior. You can't get more wood grain than this. Look, it's so wood grain, it's wood grainy. Because it's grainy, it falls apart. That's real wood grain right there. The Death Valley Car Show. Can't get any better than this. We got the two-tone paint, we got the candy apple rust again, and we got the turquoise rust. And this car was built from our good friends at Liquors and Cosmetics. Been around so long, they ain't around no more. All right, now let's take a look at under the hood. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo! Man, all right. We're futuristic here, all right? Now, our cars here at the Death Valley Car Show, we don't even run on gas anymore. That's old. This car runs 100% totally on rat feces. And you know what we call that out here in the desert? That's gas from the ass, baby.
We're on the trail to Green-Denner-Drake Mill. 3 hyphenated names of the 3 different owners over the time period. So we're gonna go back there and look at a mill site where ore was processed. And there's a cabin back there, a miner's cabin. It's gonna be pretty interesting. A lot of junk too.
We like junk. We like junk. In the trunk.
This is the cabin. It's cement. Looks like stucco. And the mill behind us, we're going to look at in a little while, was built in 1953. And it was said that prospector Thad Green, G-R-E-E-N-E, built this to process his tungsten. He had a mine over near Skidoo in 52, 53, but the tungsten turned out to be not that good of ore, so they think he never brought much over here to be processed. Irwin Denner was the next person to have the property, along with John Drake, and they hoped to process gold from here from Skidoo, but it didn't pan out, and they split up their partnership. This whole complex was abandoned about 1970, and if you go inside, there's a lot of animal feces, so don't strip the dust too much because you could get the Hunter virus and it's deadly.
We have come across the dump site for the mill, and one of the cool things about dump sites is that you get an idea of how these people lived. And well, for instance, if you look down on the ground, there's just a bunch of cans, and that means that they ate a lot of canned food. But one interesting thing is that they apparently ate it on some nice china or dinnerware. It's fairly intricate. That's it. You see a lot of looks like alcohol bottles and canned goods. The food of champions.
As well as they thought. As we said earlier, you can tell by the rock here that these tailings, there's not that much tailings for a very productive mill. Well, we're at an outhouse. Nothing unusual about an outhouse except in Death Valley. I don't know if it's because the miners were lonely or whatever, or they just couldn't stand to be away from each other, but this is a 2-holer. And that's kind of strange. I mean, when I do my business, I like to do my business alone. And this isn't the only one. I found 3 other camps throughout Death Valley that have 2-holers. And I don't know why. But there you have it. A 2-hole outhouse.
Richard has been so kind to show us one of the treasures of Death Valley. It's petroglyphs.
And tell us a little bit about this undisclosed location here in Death Valley.
This supposedly is made by the Shoshone Indians. We're not quite sure what the material is, but most of the petroglyphs you see throughout Death Valley are either on the desert shellac type rocks chiseled into the shellac or on lava. So this is an unusual find, having it on this kind of stone. Therefore, I don't know the age. I asked the park ranger. Don't know how old they are, but some of the petroglyphs in Death Valley are 4,000 to 10,000 years old. I'm guessing these are newer. But an interesting point right up here, it says, looks like HAW 1855. And the way the 8 was made, one of the park rangers thinks that it really is somebody who put their name there in 1855. It's hard to prove stuff like that, but these are the best ones right here. The bighorn sheep.
Nice.
Oh.
And a human being. So they got a human here. Or an arrow. It's a strange thing about petroglyphs, even the ones that have been in New Mexico and all, in the Indian culture didn't have written history, so nobody knows what half these things mean. Sometimes they mean a map, sometimes just artwork to show this is a hunting ground maybe, and sometimes, and your father probably would address that well here if he was here with us, that the shamans would come out to places like this, and then they'd have their hallucinations and due to fasting and the like, and then they'd see unbelievable things that they thought the gods were showing, and they'd make those weird things on the rocks.
And I don't know if this is the same thing, but I've seen similar petroglyphs like this, which mean that it's like a meeting place. We have here an attempt by the Shoshone people to prevent vandalism. It says, "You have found a valuable example of our cultural heritage. Please help us preserve it by not vandalizing it further."
And what we got right here is a 1932 Ford Crown Victoria, fully desert custom out. See here again, no engine, don't need it. Moves faster that way. Now we got the custom paint job right here, candy apple rust. Won't find that paint job anywhere else in the world. This is a beauty right here. Come on the inside, check out the inside. Bam, look. Shed weight in the doors. Same color on the outside as in the inside. You know how much money you gotta pay for that? All right, check this. This is real pimp right here. Real pimp right here. Solid rock seats. Solid rock. Who you know got solid rock seats? Who do you know has solid rock seats? Nobody. Nobody. But out here, this is how we do it. This is style. This is living. Look. Yo. I know everybody out there in the city likes to drop their cars, but you cannot get lower than this. Let's see you try to drop your car lower than this. This car is so low, it's in the ground. It is in the ground. You can't dump your car like this anywhere else except here in the desert. Now it's time for something pretty.
Richard, this is Aguereberry's homestead?
Yes, on the other side of the hills where his homes are, his buildings. He lived here for 40-some years. This is the Cashier mine and mill. Trucks would he'd drive a truck up there, drop the bigger rocks down there, break it down, and break it down into the gold ore that it was, and then drive out on out and take it out. But he ran this till, I think he died 1942, somewhere around there. So he lived out here all year round. I mean, all the hardships of the snow and the heat and everything. He was very meticulous.
All this he did himself?
Yes.
Even like...
I believe he did all this himself. This part, because it's larger, and we're in Death Valley, this part's rare to see left over. Whenever you come across stone ruins, all you see is the four walls usually. No roof, because they're all rotted away. But this one's so big, and then these are old, and it's so preserved here in the desert.
I'm here at the entrance of the Eureka mine here in Death Valley National Park. And as I'm sitting here looking at all this old structures, I noticed something right here on the side of the rock wall. There's a black widow in there. And what's cool is that there's a lot of egg sacs hanging around this little crevice. It's like a metal pipe sticking out. And the black widow has made her home deep inside of that metal pipe. And there are all these egg sacs around. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 egg sacs. And the average number of black widow spiderlings that come out of each egg sac ranges from about 150 to 300 individuals. So whoever was living in this little crevice right here has been putting out a lot of babies. Now the cool thing about this, and why it interests me in particular, is because even when you're out in the desert, you know, when surrounded by natural types of environments, you add that one little piece of anthropogenic structure, man-made structure, and the black widow spider takes full advantage of that. Something about people that widow spiders kind of like being around. If you go into the cities like Los Angeles, Orange County, Riverside County, you'll see that there's a different type of widow spider out there called the brown widow, which seems to be better adapted in those type of heavily urban environments. But if you come out here to the desert where the climate is dry and more extreme throughout the year, it's the complete opposite. You have the black widow that takes advantage of most of the desert structures out here, especially on man-made structures.
Even though these were but a few hidden treasures tucked away into the many crevices of Death Valley, we are honored to share them with you. As always, we have taken some pain in not showing where these sites are to protect their integrity. If you want to know where these locations are, please direct your questions to the Death Valley National Park Service. I'm sure they'd be happy to help you out.
I'm Andrew Perry. Let's try and keep it reasonable out there. And this edition of dog food, we're going to the Toll Road Restaurant. This will be pretty tasty. I hear good things about it.
Are you all paying individually?
Yes.
All right, so number one,
13
is it
bucks,
one
you
of you
can't
or
beat
two?
it.
One.
Who's paying? Okay, thank you.
Oh, wait, what do you mean?
One person.
One person.
Okay, so do you want the full?
Full.
All right, so it's $13.99. Here's your silverware.
I need to step up.
He understood what I was saying.
Try some eating.
Good morning.
Oh yeah, that's good. And Andrew.
My rating of this breakfast is a 6 because it's a little expensive for
So do you want the full?
full.
All right, so it's $13.99.
A breakfast with fairly limited items, in my opinion. That's why I got my fill, because I wanted to get my money's worth. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it was good. It was alright. Still a 6 though.
Probably give it 5.5. I mean, the food there is basically, you can tell it's instant breakfast foods. You can cook it in like 5 seconds, but I don't blame them because it's easy to do. But why are you charging us $13 for it?
Given that we were eating camping food all weekend, I'm gonna give it an 8. Yeah, it was decent. Not terrible.
I had the eggs with the spinach and bell peppers, sausage and bacon, and some fruit and stuff. The price was a little bit higher than it ought to be, but it was a buffet, so you can still eat a lot. So I'll give it an 8.
Yeah, I rate the restaurant here about an 8. The food is good. It's only $13. You can get all the food you want on the buffet. So I like the bacon and the sausage. The price is right, especially for being in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
That's what I say.
Well, and what did you have?
Since I had the buffet, I had bacon, a lot of bacon, sausage, big fat sausages, scrambled eggs, potatoes, coffee, orange juice, and fruit. Excellent.
You want it, you take it, you got it, it's gone. You want it, you take it, you got it, it's gone. You're in the Aguereberry desert. We don't just look at life, we look at death. My boy Danny over here came up on this jackrabbit skull. Say about it.